In this video, I really want to talk about listening to the bass. This is something that I am sure if you are just getting started in bass fishing or you've been fishing your entire life, you have probably heard. And listening to the bass, listening to the fish can mean a lot of different things. So in this video, I want to unpack it a little bit. I also want to tell you of a couple of recent experiences that I have had just in the last couple of weeks where one, listening to the fish made a huge difference, and two, not listening to the fish had made a big difference. So hopefully if you guys really fully understand it, it will help you out there on the water. You won't make the same mistakes that I have made. Now, before we get into it, this video is brought to you by Fin Fishing Apparel. And right now, for the month of June, there is a special sale happening. If you pick up a USA made sun shirt, you actually get a free rod glove. These are a neoprene rod glove, the best rod gloves out there on the market. Your baits will not get hung like they do in kind of that meshy type rod glove. But anyways, it's really kind of important. If you want to take advantage of this, you do have to select both the sun shirt that you want and the rod glove that you want. I have ones for bait casters, I have one for spinning reels. So make sure you do that down below. Shopping at Fin Fishing is truly the best way to help support this channel, and I greatly appreciate all of you who have done so. All right, let's talk a little bit about listening to the bass. I think the first time I ever remember hearing this was from my uncle down in Florida, probably when I was about 15 years old, talking to me about just listen to what the bass is telling you. And over the years, there's been a billion times. I mean, pretty much every time you go out there on the water, there is an opportunity for you to listen to the bass. Now, obviously, if you're brand new to fishing, this isn't an audible thing. You're not going to hear the bass say something, obviously. But there are little clues that we get out there on the water that if you kind of understand that clue in the moment, it can truly help you in a big way. And so I want to talk about just a few experiences that I've had here recently. And so one, I fished a tournament a couple of weeks ago on Saturday, and not this past Saturday, a Saturday a couple of weeks ago. And anyways, I struggled a little bit in the tournament, and I kept telling the partner that I was fishing with, I just need to get that clue. I just need to get that clue. And so late in the day, we went up into shallow water, and we got a few bites in shallow water, but they were on pieces of cover, specifically wood cover, that was somewhat off the bank. And so I told him in the moment, I said, you know, we're getting a couple of bites, and every bite that I have noticed, it's off the bank. It is not directly on the bank. And so I somewhat listened to that thought that was going on in my mind. And anytime I came across a target, like a wood target that was off the bank, you know, maybe it's 20, 30 feet off the bank, I would cast near it, and I did get a few other bites in that manner, but we didn't end up doing all that well in the tournament. But that next Tuesday night tournament that I fished, I remembered that thought, and we were struggling again out there. Me and a different partner were out there. We were struggling a little bit again, and it was late into the day, and I kind of remembered that whole thing about those fish just seeming like they were just a little bit off the bank. And so I got into one of the same areas where I had caught them on that Saturday beforehand, but instead of just paying attention to wood cover, I looked at everything that was just off the bank. And I noticed that there were a few small grass patches that were just off the bank. And so what did I do? I threw my bait by those grass patches, and we ended up catching in like that last hour 4 really good fish in that last hour, and they were all doing that thing where if I had listened to it that Saturday before and fully grasped it, I think it would have really helped us in that tournament. Now, on that Tuesday nighter, we just didn't have enough time. Now, with those 4 fish, we had almost 12 pounds and got I think 5th place out of 30 boats in that particular tournament. So one more fish would have basically put us in 2nd place. But that can happen. Just the littlest things like that can happen if I'd listened to the fish. Now, the big thing that I realized on that Tuesday is that I was fishing on top of some of the exact same fish that I was catching the following Tuesday night. And so it's just little things like that a lot of times that can make a big difference. Now, on that Saturday, I kind of was there, but I wasn't fully there. And so when you get out in the water, make sure that you kind of look at things in a narrow perspective, like yes, it is wood cover off the bank, but also in a little bit more broad perspective, as in this is cover that is off the bank. What else is cover? Cover could be maybe a rock pile off the bank. It could be grass off the bank. It could be wood. It could be whatever off the bank, because that would have really helped me. Now, just today, I was actually doing a little bit of bank fishing, and kind of the exact same thing happened. You guys will be able to see this video come out on BassFishingHQ here probably on Saturday. But it was a pretty cool video. Got to do a little bit of bank fishing, and I fished a pond that was a little bit more of a lake. Like the circumference around this particular pond that I was fishing was 1.2 miles. So it's fairly large. And something that I noticed right off the get-go when I got there was a bluegill bed. It wasn't too far after I got into a bluegill bed, and it was an active bluegill bed, meaning that there was bluegill that were spawning there. I told myself I probably should go look for more bluegill beds, but I also wasn't convinced that that was the only thing that bass were going to be relating to. Now, it took me about 3 hours to go completely around this lake, this pond, and it wasn't until about 80% of the way through that I found another bluegill bed. Now, I had caught a couple of fish just randomly, but when I got to that next bluegill bed, I saw visibly with my eyes like 5 or 6 bass all surrounding this bluegill bed. Now, I wasn't able to really pinpoint them because of the brush that was overhanging. I kind of could, but I'll talk about that here in a minute. But I tried to make a cast. I didn't catch any bass, but then it clicked with me really quick. Like, I just need to focus on the bluegill beds. So instead of casting like at every opening that I can and really wasting a lot of time, I just started walking until I found a bluegill bed. And lo and behold, within about 10 minutes of walking, found another one, made a cast, caught a bass. Like, real quick, as simple as that. Now, I ended up walking completely around without finding any other bluegill beds. There was basically just 3 that I had found on the lake. And so right before the end of the day, I had like a half hour left, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna skip basically everything, 95% of what I had fished, and I'm gonna go to 2 bluegill beds real quick, the ones that I thought were the best. I went up to one, and a fish came up there and freaking nailed my bait. I had him hooked for a split second, came off, and then he kind of seemed to spook a couple other fish that were in that area. But still, it was a fish bite, and I went all the way back down to that other bluegill bed and caught a pretty good one. And so it's funny to me that you can spend 3 or 4 hours kind of trying to figure something out, and then once you do get that clue or that little thing, it can happen so quick. Like within the last 30 minutes, I had as many bites in the last 30 minutes as I did in the first 3 hours. And it was just because I listened to the fish. So there's a lot of different things that go into listening to the fish, but I just wanted to tell you of a couple experiences that I had here lately. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this one. Don't forget to check out that fin fishing package deal. I'll leave it linked right here. I will see you guys tomorrow.